Good evening. The video that I'm going to show you later on YouTube, it'll be more than just me making statements. I'll make statements, I'll show you a video of the Prime Minister of Israel being received by the representative of Great Britain, and then another video of mine with statements and observations, and then you will see another video of the Prime Minister talking to the United Nations, addressing the General Assembly last September. And from then on, I'll show you a few clips of videos from the Middle East with what happened in the last few days when there was all this turmoil and war, really, or you can say that it was almost like a civil war, besides the rockets going from one place to the other from both sides. And then I want you, the Israeli people and the American people, you have the key to solving this issue that is hanging out there for decades. And I feel that it is your responsibility, both the American people and the Israeli people, to bring about a decent, humane solution to this problem with the Palestinian land and their suffering, their continuous suffering. I know that the Palestinians are decent people, and I know also that the Israeli people are decent people, and they want nothing more than peace and security for their own land and prosperity. They're not looking for turmoil, they're not looking for wars, and neither are looking on the side of the Palestinians. And more than everybody else, not looking for problems is the American people. They're really, really decent, hardworking people. But we're dealing with stubborn politicians that get excited by all the power that they grasp in their hands. And they feel good about it. And they lose track of reality. And they lose human feeling. They're not feeling like humans anymore. You can tell from their actions, they're not normal people. The way they approach each other. Look at this first video. When the British representative is receiving the Prime Minister of Israel, you can tell that the hypocrisy is high and that they are really kissing each other's ass in order to make everybody believe that they know what they're doing and that they should be accepted for what they want and they're saying. It's amazing what these people do. They lose reality. They don't know what the actual understanding of the simple, the ordinary people in each one of the countries is. I can tell you that after you finish seeing this video, it's not too long, it's not long, then I'm going to come back and tell you what you're going to see in the next video of the Prime Minister speaking to the United Nations. and what he is portraying. What is he conveying to the people, to the world? And then at the end, I'm going to have a couple of remarks also. In between, you will see those two videos plus the ones that I'm making the remarks, and you will see some videos from the Middle East of what reality is and how much this decent, proud people of Palestine are going through because of your hot-headed Prime Minister of Israel. So it is up to you, Israeli people, and up to an extent is also up to the Palestinian people, but it is mostly in the hands of the Israelis and the American public that have the key, the power to change things within minutes and stop this nonsense, these criminal acts that are taking place for all of these years. Aren't you tired of having casualties every so often in both sides? Why? Because the politicians are so corrupted that don't want to listen to you, the people that vote them into office? And how in Israel can you allow this particular government to manipulate you and convince you to give them an additional 4 years? Why? Don't you see the harm that they're doing to you? Watch this video and I'll be with you in a very short time.
Minister Dominic, it's good to see you again. In better times, we hope, and we'll work together to make them even better.
I'm here as a friend, as you know, a great supporter of Israel, and we're looking forward to talking about the bilateral relationship, but also how we move things forward elsewhere.
Thank you, and Prime Minister Johnson, Boris, for the staunch, unwavering support of our right to self-defense during the recent operation. It's much appreciated.
You can always count on us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Please.
Mister.
Hello, sir. Thank you.
And now you're going to watch the Prime Minister of Israel, who's also holding four ministries, the most important ones in the country, because he wants to rule with an iron fist, and he doesn't want anyone to put him in jeopardy. He doesn't want to be risked in any way. He wants to have the upper hand and inspect and spy and control everybody so that he can finally control the view and the opinion of the Israeli people. This way he can run them, he can tell them how to think, he can manipulate the way they're thinking, and he can play back and forth. He has the power, he has the means, he has the money, and he can convince them to vote for him again and again. And mind you, he's not known to be one of the most ethical people that ever served Israel. In any case, now you're going to see him in the next video that he's addressing the United Nations General Assembly. Not too many people there because it was last September that they were afraid of Dr. Fauci and Mr. Gates and the pandemic. They were scared like crazy. They're afraid of getting the virus and dying and spreading it out, and they look so awful. They look so graphic. History will be showing us how ashamed we should all be for accepting this false narrative, this false pandemic, the fake coronavirus that are pushing upon ourselves. And now they have the vaccines that are trying to desperately inject it into people. Now, look at this video. See how he, the Prime Minister of Israel, without any shame, any remorse, is trying to tell the world that he feels on top of the mountain, that he is more than God, and that he's going to rule the world, that he's not going to listen to anybody, and he's not going to take advice or pressure by anybody, even from the United States. But he says so, especially for the United States, because he knows that the Jewish lobby in Washington is ruling the states. And the lobby is not just 5 and 10 people that they run around the Congress and Senate or the White House. The lobby, the amazingly strong Jewish lobby of the United States, is all over the country. They're running the media. They're running the banks. They're running all of the facets of the American economy, most of them. And so they put all the pressure they decide. And nobody dares, no American politician dares to stand up and tell the Jewish lobby to keep quiet, that their power is over. It is only you, the American public, the American people, that can do that. And you can only do it by being serious, not coming up with videos all over YouTube and other platforms that mislead the American people, that it makes them feel good just for you to get more likes and subscriptions on your videos. Only if you're honest and truthful to the American people and you tell them that they need to wake up and start uniting and fighting back in every little place and agency and city hall and community and everywhere in the United States. That's the only way you're going to get your country back. It is unfortunate. This country, the United States, look at it, for the last, 4 months, has been in the hands of a bunch of underworld people, mafia, the cabal, which is a criminal organization, and yet the American people are striving, they're trying to understand how to react and how to fight back. I can see, I can tell, yes, and I appreciate it, and I respect it, that there's many people that they're trying hard to organize everybody else and get them close to each other and react and pressure and tell the cabal that this country belongs to the American people and not to the rich and famous. And that they intend to keep it that way. Friends, I have lived in the States for 4 decades. And I have been in many places of the world. And I have been to Israel twice and Palestine too. And I know how decent people both of those lands have. But they have lost control of their politicians. So do the Americans. It is time for the people of Palestine, Israel, and the United States of America to stand up and tell your politicians that you are the bosses, not them. You're going to give them the orders and they're going to enforce them as you please, as you tell them. Make it clear to them that they have no other choice from now on. Look the way that Schumer, Pelosi, Schiff, look at all of these unfortunate bums. Look at Bernie Sanders. Look at the 4 or 5 women at the Congress. Some are Muslim, some of them they're not. And they think that they're running the world. The United States of America has been left for the last 4 years in the hands of a group of totally irresponsible, crazy, unfortunate human beings. They're totally lunatics, and yet they're left free to do as they please and do as harm as they can, as much harm to the American people and to the rest of the world, including the Israelis and including the Palestinians, because if the American people had been able to put their leaders, their politicians, that they're corrupted to the core, they're so unethical, if they had convinced them and ordered them to be decent, the other places would be decent too. There would be peace in Israel. They would not have to be running around looking for cover for the rockets that the Israeli Prime Minister is provoking from the other side in order to claim to the rest of the world that he has the right to attack and bring down whole buildings with civilians, killing a number of people. You think, who might think that this is fair? Is this humane? Is this a human reaction? Is this civilization as you can imagine it? Isn't there any logic anywhere else, anywhere left in the world that can stand up, so they can stand up and tell them, the Israelis and the Americans, to stop the atrocities against the Palestinian people? Look at the videos where they need inside their homeland to be going through 3 and 4 checkpoints in order to get a permit to travel from one block to the other to see their parents or to shop. In what society do you feel that's acceptable? Don't you feel any shame? Don't you, the rest of the world, feel any shame because you have enough to eat? And because you having a life, you feel that that's okay for the Palestinians to have to give credentials 4 times a day to go home or to go someplace else or to go to work? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Now the Arabs are celebrating or observing their holiday. Why would anybody in their right mind provoke them during that holiday so they can react? So can Israel take it and claim to the rest of the world that it is the Hamas that's doing it? Who created the Hamas? Why was it created? Is anybody willing to ask? Who created it? Israel created it. And the policies and the billions of the American people that end up with Israel and buying weapons and killing hundreds and thousands of people. Kids, don't you have any shame? Killing kids? Not giving a damn about it? And then you claiming Cabal is having tunnels and is abusing children. So are you. One way or the other, you're ending up doing the same goddamn thing. You're abusing children. Innocent people. How dare you, Mr. Trump, allowing Israelis. That's why you're staying away from the White House. That's why you gave it up. So you can allow them to do what they please. Shame on you too. You, Mr. Trump, have given Israel another incentive to dismantle Palestine. You mentioned before you left office that you didn't mind if they joined and they lived as one. Or if they want to live separately, that's okay with you too. But you know well that you gave the incentive to the Israeli butcher to pursue that policy of doing what he can to harm the Palestinians, to bring them psychologically down to the death so that they can give up and accept to become part of the Jewish state. How dare you, pushing the Israelis and giving them the right to change a people's religion and absorb them and consume them. How dare you? How dare you? Who gave you the right? Who made you God, Mr. Trump or Mr. Netanyahu? You, the American people, stand up and support and protect the Palestinians' rights to have their own country and their own religion as they please. As I need to have my own rights to be a Christian, they need to be as they please. Who the hell are you all telling the Palestinians what to do? Since when God died and made you gods? How dare you pretending that you're good people, Mr. Trump? You're not good people when you do that. You think by giving the Israelis all of Jerusalem that you solved the problem? No, you created a bigger one for them. Because now you know that the eastern side of Jerusalem, the Palestinians, they'll die, but they will never accept your decision. Who the hell are you to decide that Jerusalem belongs to the Jews? Who? How? When? Just because they put it in their Torah book, in that fiction book, you dare pushing it upon the throats of the other people of the other side. Who are you? When did Israel the word Israel existed. Since when? Tell us when. Have you any understanding of when religion, the Jewish religion, was written? When is it in force? Since when? Tell us, any one of you. Don't just read what they tell you and you are like goddamn birds repeating it. You're going to have to learn to respect the rights of the Palestinian people, as you expect them to respect the right of the Israeli people to live in peace and securely under their country, inside their country, with their own borders. Why do you think you have more rights than the Palestinians? Why? Who are you, Mr. Netanyahu? Who? You're a butcher. Worse than the other one that served Israel. The butcher, as he was known, Ariel Sharon. You come to the United States knowing that you are protected by the billions and all of the Mossad people and all of the Jewish lobby, and you ridicule and you talk about Iran not having the right to have weapons. Yes, they do. Who the hell are you not to allow it? Who the hell are you? You can believe it. They will eventually have weapons because you are a sick person. You are the danger of the Middle East. You are the danger of everybody. You are doing more harm to the United States than the Iranians ever did to you. You're doing harm to the United States every single day. You're working to keep America in a war state with everybody because you want to feel on top of the mountain, that you want to feel that you can handle it. You can have the weapons you want. You can pressure the Americans and give in and give you more money and more things, that you can become wealthier with your family, not caring at all for the rest of the Israeli people, or for that matter for the Palestinians. Mr. Prime Minister of Israel, you are a butcher. You are inhumane. You are a reptile. You do not deserve to be in that position. And the Israelis should do what they can to overthrow you, because you're doing more harm to them than any enemy from the outside can possibly think of doing against the Israeli people. You are the danger. You are the Israeli people's enemy. All of what you're doing, every single minute of your life, it is scheduled and is designed to keep the Israeli people oppressed, so you can be on top. You can have the powers in your hands, and you can dictate to them, and you can tell them how to live their lives, so you can feel important, because you're crooked, because you're corrupted, unethical. Try and think of the rest of the people as human beings too. And let me say a few words for these corrupted politicians of Palestine. You think that we don't know who you are and what you do? All you cared is to be in power too, and claim that you're the president of this authority and that authority, not to create a nation for your people. You have been sharing billions of dollars that they're giving you from all over the world in order to sustain places and agencies and services for your people. But no, You prefer to be having billions for your kids and grandchildren and relatives and spend very little of it for the actual Palestinian people. Canada believed that you were close enough to convince Israel to sit down with you and negotiate and accept them as a nation. They deserve, the Israelis deserve to be recognized as a nation, as a Jewish nation. And they need to recognize you at the same time as a Palestinian nation. But you know what? It serves your purpose when it's in turmoil like this, because it keeps you in power. It gives you the strength to feel that the people are begging you to negotiate and go to the United Nations and see this and talk to this president and this European nation. They're all hypocrites, corrupted as they are. They're using the people's money and they're having a big life, large. They're doing nothing, absolutely nothing, for the people of the nations. And so are you at Palestine. You could have your country already if you had the decency all these years to sit down and really ask everybody's help to convince the Israelis that at the same time you both would recognize each other and live in peace and harmony. But you have not. Because as I said, power is what you're after, not the good of your people. Canada spent $32 million and built your new Supreme Court. What happened to that beautiful building? It's just sitting there, right? Because you, none of you, cared to pursue that dream of justice and democracy for your people. Decent Palestinian people. It is time that the Palestinian people, the Israeli people, and the American people hold the keys, hold the power to make your governments run and not be able to hide. You can tell them, either do it my way or you take the door and run fast. And you can do it. But it takes guts, goddammit. It takes guts. Just watch the rest of the videos and see why I'm saying all this for Israelis. For the Israeli government, not for the people. I love the people. They're simple, decent people. But not their governments. Just as bad as the Palestinian government, or worse, and just as corrupted as the American politicians. I'll be back at the very end to say goodbye.
The Assembly will hear a statement by His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister for the Economy, Minister for Communications, and Minister for Regional Cooperation of the State of Israel. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have great pleasure in welcoming the Prime Minister of Israel. I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, when I spoke here 3 years ago, Israel stood alone among the nations. of the nearly 200 countries that sit in this hall, only Israel openly opposed the nuclear deal with Iran. We oppose it because it threatens our future, even our very survival. We opposed it because the deal paved Iran's path to a nuclear arsenal. And by lifting the sanctions, it fueled Iran's campaign of carnage and conquest throughout the Middle East. We oppose it because the deal was based on a fundamental lie that Iran is not seeking to develop nuclear weapons. Now, Israel exposed that lie earlier this year. Last February, Israel conducted a daring raid on Iran's secret atomic archive. We obtained over 100,000 documents and videos that had been stashed in vaults in an innocent-looking building in the heart of Tehran. In May, I presented a short summary of what we obtained to the international media. I provided hard evidence of Iran's plans to build nuclear weapons and its plans to deceive the international community. Israel shared this information and even more damning evidence that we found with members of the P5+1 and with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Months have passed. The IAEA has still not taken any action. It has not posed a single question to Iran. It has not demanded to inspect a single new site discovered in that secret archive. So given this inaction, I decided to reveal today something else that we have shared with the IAEA and with a few intelligence agencies. What I'm about to say has not been shared publicly before. Today, I'm disclosing for the first time that Iran has another secret facility in Tehran, a secret atomic warehouse for storing massive amounts of equipment and materiel from Iran's secret nuclear weapons program. In May, we exposed the site of Iran's secret atomic archive. It's right here, in the Shorabad district of Tehran. Today, I'm revealing the site of a second facility, Iran's secret atomic warehouse. It's right here, in the Turkuzabad district of Tehran, just 3 miles away. Let me show you exactly what the secret atomic warehouse looks like. Here it is. You see, like the atomic archive, it's another innocent-looking compound. Now, for those of you at home using Google Earth, this no longer secret atomic warehouse is on Meir Alley, Meir Street. You have the coordinates. You can try to get there, and for those of you who try to get there, it's 100 meters from the Kalishoi, the rug cleaning operation. By the way, I hear they do a fantastic job cleaning rugs there. But by now, they may be radioactive rugs. This is the second secret site. Now, countries with satellite capabilities may notice some increased activity on Meyer Alley in the days and weeks ahead. The people they'll see scurrying back and forth are Iranian officials desperately trying to finish the job of clearing up that site. Because you see, since we raided the atomic archive, they've been busy cleaning out the atomic warehouse. Just last month, they removed 15 kilograms of radioactive material. You know what they did with it? They had 15 kilograms of radioactive material. They had to get it out of the site. So they took it out and they spread it around Tehran in an effort to hide the evidence. The endangered residents of Tehran may want to know that they can get a Geiger counter on Amazon for only $29.99. As of today, that's just 4 million Iranian riyals. But we'll get to that later. I'll talk about the Iranian economy in a minute. They took this radioactive material and spread it around Tehran. Now, the Iranian officials cleaning out that site still have a lot of work to do because they've had at least 15 ship containers. They're gigantic. 15 ship containers full of nuclear-related equipment and material stored there. Now, since each of those containers can hold 20 tons of material, this means that this site contained as much as 300 tons of nuclear-related equipment and material. Right here. So, distinguished delegates, you have to ask yourself a question. Why did Iran keep a secret atomic archive and a secret atomic warehouse? Because after all, when South Africa and Libya, when they gave up their nuclear programs, the first thing they did was to destroy both the archives and the material and equipment. And the answer to the question is simple. The reason Iran didn't destroy its atomic archive and its atomic warehouse is because it hasn't abandoned its goal to develop nuclear weapons. In fact, it planned to use both of these sites in a few years when the time would be right to break out to the atom bomb. But ladies and gentlemen, rest assured, that won't happen. It won't happen because what Iran hides, Israel will find. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a message to the head of the IAEA, Mr. Yukiya Amano. I believe he's a good man. I believe he wants to do the right thing. Well, Mr. Amano, do the right thing. Go inspect this atomic warehouse immediately before the Iranians finish clearing it out. Distinguished delegates, do you remember when we were promised that inspections could take place anytime, anywhere? Remember that? Anytime, anywhere. Well, how about inspections right here, right now? And Mr. Amano, while you're at it, inspect the other sites we told you about. Once and for all, tell the world the truth about Iran. Now, I also have a message today for the tyrants of Tehran. Israel knows what you're doing, and Israel knows where you're doing it. Israel will never let a regime that calls for our destruction to develop nuclear weapons. Not now, not in 10 years, not ever. And Israel will do whatever it must do to defend itself against Iran's aggression. We will continue to act against you in Syria. We will act against you in Lebanon. We will act against you in Iraq. We will act against you whenever and wherever we must act to defend our state and to defend our people. Distinguished delegates, 3 years ago, a few weeks after the nuclear deal was completed, I asked this question from this very podium. Does anyone seriously believe that flooding Iran's radical theocracy with weapons and cash will curb its appetite for aggression? But many of the deal's supporters believed just that. They believed that Iran's regime would become more moderate, more peaceful. They believed that Iran would use the billions of dollars it received in sanctions relief to improve the lives of its people, to solve the water problem, to solve the trucking problem, to solve the electricity problem, hospitals, schools. That's what they believed. Perhaps many of you also believe that. Well, this didn't happen. Instead, Iran used the money to fuel its vast war machine. Just this past year, Iran has attacked Kurds in Iraq, slaughtered Sunnis in Syria, armed Hezbollah in Lebanon, financed Hamas in Gaza, fired missiles into Saudi Arabia, and threatened freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. Some peace, some moderation. Now, if you think that Iran's aggression has been confined to the Middle East, think again. Last month, 2 Iranian agents were arrested for plotting terror attacks right here in the United States. And several weeks ago, Iranian agents were arrested for plotting terror attacks in the heart of Europe. Yet, while the United States is confronting Iran with new sanctions, Europe and others are appeasing Iran by trying to help it bypass those new sanctions. Now, I've just used a word, a tough word, a very strong word, appeasement. And I use it reluctantly. But unfortunately, that's exactly what we're seeing again in Europe. Think about this. The same week, Iran was caught red-handed trying to murder European citizens. European leaders were rolling out the red carpet for President Rouhani, promising to give Iran even more money. I'm a historian's son. I have to ask. I ask it not merely as a historian's son, I ask it as a Jew, as a citizen of the world, as someone who's lived through the 20th century. Have these European leaders learned nothing from history? Will they ever wake up? Well, we in Israel, we don't need a wake-up call because Iran threatens us every day. Because despite the best of hopes, and there were many hopes around the nuclear deal, this deal did not push war further away. It brought war ever closer to our borders. In Syria, Iran is trying to establish permanent military bases against us and has already launched missiles and drones into our territory. In Gaza, Iran is arming terror groups to launch rocket attacks into our cities and terror attacks against our civilians. In Lebanon, Iran is directing Hezbollah to build secret sites to convert inaccurate projectiles into precision-guided missiles, missiles that can target deep inside Israel within an accuracy of 10 meters. Hezbollah, listen to this, Hezbollah is deliberately using the innocent people of Beirut as human shields. They've placed 3 of these missile conversion sites along Beirut's international airport. Here's a picture that's worth 1,000 missiles. Here's Beirut's international airport. Here's the first missile site. It's in the Uzai neighborhood, on the water's edge, a few blocks away from the runway. Here's the second site. It's underneath a soccer stadium. That's the soccer stadium, 2 blocks away. And here's the third site. It's adjacent to the airport itself, right next to it. So I have a message for Hezbollah today. Israel also knows what you're doing. Israel knows where you're doing it. And Israel will not let you get away with it. Ladies and gentlemen, just as the nuclear deal supporters were wrong about what would happen when sanctions would be removed, they were wrong, dead wrong, about what would happen when sanctions would be restored. They argued that U.S. sanctions alone would have little economic impact on Iran. That's what they said. Really? Well, let's see what happened to Iran's economy now that President Trump has forced companies to choose between doing business with Iran and doing business with the United States, whose GDP is 50 times the size of Iran's GDP. A year ago, Iran's economy was booming. Now it's collapsing. Iran's currency is plummeting. Inflation and unemployment are soaring. British airlines, German banks, French oil companies, Japanese oil importers, and many others are scrambling to get out. If that's little economic impact, imagine what will happen with the next batch of U.S. sanctions imposed in November. The deal's supporters were also wrong when they argued, you have to believe that they argued this. I mean, I had many arguments with them. They also argued that restoring sanctions would rally the Iranian people around the regime. Well, they're definitely rallying, but not around the regime. They're rallying against the regime. They're not chanting death to America. They're chanting death to the dictator. They're not chanting export the Islamic Revolution. They're chanting leave Syria, leave Lebanon, leave Gaza, take care of us, in Iran. I listen to these protests. I talk to the Iranian people. I issue these videos. And I get so many responses from Iranians. At first I thought these are Iranian exiles in the safety of London or Paris or Los Angeles. No. Iranians from Iran embracing Israel, criticizing their regime. That's an understatement. With their names. And I asked my intelligence people, what's going on? And shortly after, the protests broke out, not because of what I said, but it was an indicator of something extraordinary that was taking place there. Because in these protests, the Iranian people are showing unbelievable courage. From the urban centers to the outlying villages, and it's embracing now the whole of Iran. From the striking bazaar merchants to the young women uncovering their hair. The people of Iran are bravely standing up to a regime that has brutally repressed them for 4 decades and that has squandered their money, still squanders their money, in bloody wars across the Middle East. So here's what I say to Europe's leaders and to others. Instead of coddling Iran's dictators, join the US and Israel and most of the Arab world in supporting new sanctions against a regime that endangers all of us and all of the world. Israel is deeply grateful to President Trump for his bold decision to withdraw from the disastrous nuclear deal with Iran. Many, many of our Arab neighbors are also grateful. And everyone who cares about the peace and security of the world should also be grateful. But, ladies and gentlemen, I have an important confession to make. This may surprise you, but I have to admit that the Iran deal has had one positive consequence, an unintended one, but a positive consequence. By empowering Iran, it brought Israel and many Arab states closer together than ever before. Closer together than ever before in an intimacy and friendship that I've not seen in my lifetime and would have been unimaginable a few years ago. And you know, when you form friendships around a threat, around a challenge, you quickly see opportunities, not only for security, but how to bring a better life for our people, which Israel can help and wants to help do. Israel deeply values these new friendships. And I hope the day will soon arrive when Israel will be able to expand peace, a formal peace, beyond Egypt and Jordan to other Arab neighbors, including the Palestinians. I look forward to working with President Trump and his peace team to achieve that goal. I also want to use this opportunity. We're here at the UN, a place I know because I served here as ambassador many years ago, for many years. So I know something about the UN. So I want to use this opportunity to express Israel's appreciation to President Trump and Ambassador Haley for the unwavering support they've provided Israel at the United Nations. They have unequivocally backed Israel's right to defend itself. They rightly pulled out of a history-denying UNESCO and a morally bankrupt UN Human Rights Councils. They have more resolutions about Israel than the rest of the world combined, I think. And tenfold compared to, I don't know, Iran, Syria, you name it. Not even tenfold, because you can't multiply zero by any number. They stopped funding President Trump and Ambassador Haley. They stopped funding an unreformed UNRWA, an organization that, instead of solving the Palestinian refugee problem, perpetuates it. Day after day, the Trump administration has stood up to what has long been a specialty here at the UN, slandering Israel. Even though the shameful resolution comparing Zionism to racism was repealed 25 years ago, I'm sorry to say that its foul stench still clings to these halls. Israel airlifted Ethiopian Jews to freedom and a new life in Israel, in the Jewish state. Yet here at the UN, Israel is absurdly accused of racism. Israel's Arab citizens vote in our elections, serve in our parliament, preside over our courts, and have exactly the same individual rights as all other Israeli citizens. Yet here at the UN, Israel is shamefully accused of apartheid. Today, there are at least 5 times as many Palestinians as there were in 1948, the year of Israel's founding. Yet here at the UN, Israel is outrageously accused of ethnic cleansing. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what this is? It's the same old anti-Semitism with a brand new face. That's all it is. Once it was the Jewish people that were slandered and held to a different standard. Today, it's the Jewish state that is slandered and held to a different standard. Here's an example. Take the outlandish attacks that have been leveled against Israel after our Knesset, our parliament, recently adopted a law declaring Israel the nation state of the Jewish people. Mind you, Israel is a free country. You can oppose this law, and people did. You can call for different wording in this or that clause, or you can call to add or subtract a clause. You can do that. But when Israel is called racist, Israel is called racist for making Hebrew its official language, and the Star of David its national flag. When Israel is labeled an apartheid state for declaring itself the nation state of the Jewish people, this is downright preposterous. And you know why? Because represented in this hall today are more than 100 countries that have only one official language, even though many other languages are commonly spoken within those countries. There are more than 50 countries here that have crosses or crescents on their flags, even though many have non-Muslims and non-Christians, many of them living in their midst. And there are dozens of countries that define themselves as nation states of a particular people, even though there are many ethnic and national minorities within their borders. None of these countries are denigrated or libeled for celebrating their unique national identity. Only Israel is denigrated. Only Israel is libeled. What is unique about the Jewish people is not that we have a nation state. What is unique is that many still oppose us having a nation state. Moments ago, President Abbas outrageously said that Israel's nation state law proves that Israel is a racist apartheid state. President Abbas, you should know better. You wrote a dissertation denying the Holocaust. Your Palestinian Authority imposes death sentences on Palestinians for selling land to Jews. Did you hear that? If a Jew buys an apartment, a piece of land, anywhere in the Palestinian territories, the Palestinian who sold them that land is executed. That's what the law says. President Abbas, you proudly pay Palestinian terrorists who murder Jews. In fact, the more they slay, the more you pay. That's in their law too. And you condemn Israel's morality? You call Israel racist? This is not the way to peace. This is not the way to achieve the peace we all want and need, and to which Israel remains committed. This body should not be applauding the head of a regime that pays terrorists. The UN should condemn such a despicable policy. And the UN, which brokered a ceasefire in 2014, should demand that Hamas release our fallen soldiers, Oron Shaul and Adar Goldin, who was kidnapped when Hamas violated that very ceasefire. Hamas should also release the two Israeli citizens it holds captive, Abera Mengistu and Hisham al-Sayed. Ladies and gentlemen, every time I stand here, I feel as I do today. I am privileged to stand here as the Prime Minister of the Jewish and democratic state of Israel. Some believe that Israel cannot be both Jewish and democratic. This is false. Israel is both, and Israel will always remain both. Ever since Abraham and Sarah made their journey to the Promised Land nearly 4,000 years ago, the land of Israel has been our homeland. It's the place where Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Leah, and Rachel carried on their eternal covenant with God. It is where Joshua made us a sovereign nation, where David ruled and Isaiah preached, where the Maccabees fought, and where Masada fell. It's the place from which we were exiled and to which we returned, rebuilding our ancient and eternal capital, Jerusalem. The nation state of Israel is the only place where the Jewish people proudly exercise our collective right of self-determination. That right was recognized nearly a century ago by the League of Nations and over 70 years ago by the United Nations when it voted to establish, or rather to support the establishment of a Jewish state. That's what it said, that resolution. A Jewish state. At the same time, Israel is a vibrant democracy where all its citizens, Jews and non-Jews alike, enjoy equal individual rights, and these rights are guaranteed by law. In Israel, whether you're a Jew or an Arab, a Christian or a Muslim, a Druze or a Bedouin, or anything else, your individual rights are exactly the same, and they will always remain the same. In the Middle East, that's not obvious. Now, that's an understatement. In the Middle East, where women are often treated as property, minorities are persecuted, gays are hanged, Israel stands out as a shining example of freedom and progress. Ladies and gentlemen, I could not be more proud to represent my country, Israel. I'm proud that we've made Israel a global technological power of breathtaking creativity in information technology, in precision agriculture. You know what that is? We target the fertilizer and the water down to the individual plant, not field, not part of a field, down to the plant. I'm proud of these geniuses that bring these unbelievable developments in water management, in cybersecurity, in autonomous vehicles, in digital health, in medical devices, and in so many other fields that are improving the lives of billions of people around the world. I'm proud of Israel's brilliant scholars, innovative entrepreneurs, talented artists. I'm proud of Israel's devoted teachers, compassionate doctors, and our search and rescue teams who saved lives from Haiti to Mexico, from Nepal to the Philippines. I'm proud, I'm so proud of Israel's courageous soldiers, the men and women who bravely defend our homeland while upholding the highest values. And most of all, ladies and gentlemen, most of all, I'm proud of the people of Israel who draw extraordinary strength from the deep wellsprings of our heritage, who possess an unbreakable spirit, and who are determined, as ever, to build a secure and magnificent future for the one and only Jewish state. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.
There's been no let-up in the violence in Gaza. The Israeli military has confirmed that it's destroyed the building which houses the offices of some foreign news operations. Staff had been evacuated following warnings from Israeli officers. Israel says it was targeting Hamas military intelligence. Earlier, Palestinian officials said Israeli airstrikes killed 14 people, including 5 children, in a densely populated refugee camp. One Israeli has died in a rocket attack from Gaza on a Tel Aviv suburb. Paul Adams has the latest from Jerusalem.
In the dark of another long night in Gaza, a desperate search for signs of life. A four-storey building in a densely packed refugee camp hit repeatedly, according to eyewitnesses, and razed to the ground. The rescue operation was frantic, yielding only a catalogue of death. 2 families obliterated, at least 7 people, including 5 children, aged from 5 to 14. Mohammed Hadidi has lost almost everyone. His wife, Maha, and the children were staying with her brother when the missile struck. Little Omar is all he has left, found in the rubble next to his mother. Images released overnight display an operation that shows no sign of letting up. Israel says it's up to Hamas to stop firing first. That's not happening either. This, the aftermath of a rocket attack in the city of Beersheba. The rockets are, as always, indiscriminate. This is a solemn day across the Palestinian territories. In Ramallah, on the West Bank, sirens sounded to mark the 73 years since the creation of the State of Israel and the dispossession of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. On the streets of Israel's mixed cities, where Jews and Arabs live side by side, uneasy quiet this morning after nights of shocking violence. This is Jaffa, scene of fresh disturbances last night, now almost deserted. Fear and hatred tugging away at the fabric of Israeli society. Paul Adams, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, our correspondent in Gaza, Rushdie Abu Aleph, has more on the events leading up to the destruction of the building which was housing international news companies.
Yeah, it's true. It's not far from our office in Gaza. We have been watching the destroying of the building live from our rooftop. It's the biggest building so far. It's housing about 60 residential people, housing tech companies, engineering companies, including the Al Jazeera TV, satellite TV channel. Yeah, I was speaking to the landlord of the building. He said he received a call from Israeli officer telling him that you have to evacuate the building immediately. The owner said he asked the officer for another 10 minutes to take some of the archive from the Al Jazeera office, but they refused, and he asked everybody to be away from the building. Then it was fired some warning shots, warning rockets on the roof of the building. Then the building was completely destroyed from Israeli fighter jets.
As we go to air tonight, residents in Gaza are evacuating their homes, with Israel launching a fierce bombardment across the Palestinian territory. In the last 2 days, at least 36 people, including 10 children, have been killed in the constant crossfire, both sides carrying out relentless strikes with no end in sight.
Running for cover at Tel Aviv airport. Planes on the tarmac as rockets pour overhead. Rockets fired from Gaza. They easily reached the seaside town of Ashkelon.
Let's go in, let's go in.
Volley after volley. Tearing across the sky, Israel's Iron Dome defence system kicked in. Rockets from Gaza intercepted and shot down. A deadly fireworks display. But many rockets got through the Israeli defences. In Ashkelon, an oil pipeline was struck and storage tanks caught fire. In Holon, outside Tel Aviv, a terrifying strike. The rocket hit a bus, injuring 7, including a 5-year-old girl. In the city of Lod in central Israel, local Arabs have rioted. The mayor says control has been lost and there is now a civil war between Arabs and Jews. The Israeli Defence Force says 1.5 million people were forced to seek out shelter. In Tel Aviv, Australian expat Tracy Alexander among those finding cover.
You hear these incessant booms. No matter how used to this experience you can become, it's certainly terrifying.
Israeli military showed off an apartment in Ashkelon hit by one of 300 rockets fired from Gaza.
All of these rockets were fired from densely populated civilian areas in Gaza by terrorists, blatantly disregarding human life.
At times, the Israeli response looked disproportionate. In Gaza, an entire 13-story block of apartments was levelled by Israeli fighter jets. Israel released this aerial shot of the strike and claimed the building was used by Hamas militants. It's unclear if any civilians were killed. The Interior Minister in Gaza is claiming multiple police stations have been hit up and down the strip. And no sign this escalation is ending soon. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu declaring Hamas will pay a heavy price, adding their blood is on their own hands. In Lakemba, in Sydney southwest, hundreds of people gathered to support the Palestinian cause. Police broke it up when someone set fire to an Israeli flag. Mark Burrows, 9 News.
Gaza burned and billowed as Israeli airstrikes hit cars, factories, and homes in the Palestinian territory. In return, hundreds of rockets fired by Palestinian Hamas militants streaked out toward Israel. In a major escalation tonight, many were aimed at Tel Aviv, where residents scrambled for shelter. Earlier in Gaza, a 13-story residential tower teetered, then collapsed amid black smoke. Residents were warned to leave by text messages from Israel as the Israeli army said it was targeting Hamas offices in the complex. There were no reports of deaths there, but the streets filled with the funerals of more than 24 others. One was an 11-year-old boy. Why did you kill him? Asks his uncle. Israel kills and no one answers for it, he says, even though the whole world is watching. Along the border with Gaza, Israel lined up its tanks, threatening an invasion. And in a meeting with military commanders, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was defiant. We are at the height of a campaign, he says. The might and frequency of our attacks will be increased. Hamas will be getting blows it didn't expect. Israelis were not expecting this escalation either. In the country's south, rockets from Gaza flew from dawn, some hitting houses and killing 3 women. We heard a boom and sirens. There was the smell of smoke, he says, as Israeli missiles intercepted rockets from Gaza overhead. A spokesman for Hamas in Beirut isn't making any promises about how long these will continue. He blames Israel for starting clashes in Jerusalem.
I'm not saying that we will continue firing the rockets. I'm saying that we will keep defending our people. We'll do our best to protect our holy places, the mosques, the churches.
Hamas now claims to be defending Jerusalem for Islam as Israel mobilizes its forces, and nervous world leaders call for calm. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
So after seeing what is happening in Palestine, please, I plead with the Israeli people and the American people and somewhat with the Palestinian people, but it's not as much that they can do. They can continue to have faith, and I want them to continue to have hope and pursue their dreams for a homeland. But I am also asking the Israelis that have more power to tell their government that they will not continue accepting this situation. It's shameful. And the same thing, the Americans must stand up and respect and support a homeland for the decent Palestinian people. They deserve it, like we all do. And so please, don't be against any citizen of any country. Just be against your governments. You all deserve to be in peace, to live in peace, to have prosperity for your kids, for yourselves, to live in harmony. I beg you all in America and the Israeli people to use your strength and your power to find a solution, decent, humane solution for the people of Palestine. You cannot have peace in your minds, in yourselves, in your souls, for as long as these atrocities go on. Please, act to the best of your ability. Take as much action as you can and support the equal rights of the Palestinian people. Help them to create their country, and you'll see that they're going to love you. They're going to be your brothers and sisters. They're not going to have animosity against you. They will appreciate your effort, the effort of the Israeli people and the effort of the American people. The Palestinians have said it before. They're very civilized. The most civilized of the Arab world are the Palestinian people. Any one of the Arabs that is closest to respecting democracy is the Palestinian people in the Middle East. So please, I urge Egypt with its powers and Saudi Arabia, instead of just looking to how much money you're making and just give the Palestinians a portion just to say that you did something and you leave them alone, it's not good enough. You gotta be more involved. You gotta tell Israel, if they want peace, Palestine has to be created now, not later, now. And respect the Palestinians' borders and their rights. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the whole world.